Hello, my name is Rachel and I'm here tonight to give you my top 10 books of 2015. First, let me start by saying this has definitely, by far, been my best reading year ever, and I completely accredit that to being exposed to the BookTube community. I think I kind of stumbled upon BookTube on the web here in probably March of this year, and I made my first video I think in April, so yeah, it's really taken over my life, and it really has reinvigorated my reading. I've always loved reading ever since I was little. I actually got a degree in library science, and I got a job as a teacher instead, and I don't know, I was busy, and even though I still love books and I would still read, it never was a huge part of my life until I started watching these videos on YouTube. And you all read so much, and you have such great ideas about books. It really reignited that passion for reading in me, and I've read so much this year. I have completely surpassed my Goodreads goal, and I love it. I cannot wait for next year. I think 2016 is going to be even better than 2015, and I'm pumped. But on with the countdown. We're going to start with number 10 and work our way down to number 1. Coming in at number 10 is a book from a children's graphic novel series that I started and read the entire series of this year, and that is the Lunch Lady series by Jarrett Krosaka, I believe you say. I love this series. It was completely adorable. It's geared towards small children, so they are super fast. It's all in this like grayscale color, except there's yellow injected in throughout, and it's wonderful. And the whole premise is that whenever the school's in danger, the lunch lady is a secret like superhero, and she springs into action and saves the day. And each of the 10 books revolve around a particular school-related villain, and I would think my favorite of the series, which is my number 10, is the Lunch Lady and the League of Librarians. I wonder why. It was especially important to me this year as I finally did get the library job that I've been wanting for years, and I loved it. It was so cute. This one in particular, the villain obviously are the League of Librarians. All these librarians come in, and whenever they are fighting someone, they unleash the villains and the monsters in their books to help them fight. And of course, the Lunch Lady swoops in to do some battle and save all the kids in the school. And it's so cute, it's so creative, it's really lighthearted, and I highly recommend this series, especially if you're in for something lighthearted or fast, maybe for a readathon. So I would suggest this series for you in 2016 for sure. Next, coming in at number 9 is Make Good Art by Neil Gaiman. This is a speech he gave, I believe a commencement speech, and they transitioned it into book format, and I picked it up this summer for a readathon. Not only was it amazing, because Neil Gaiman's writing is always amazing, so I would expect nothing less from his speeches, but they made the words into art, and the whole thing was just really inspiring and uplifting. And I transitioned through a couple different jobs and had some stresses over the summer, and this came at a perfectly good time. It was very inspiring and uplifting, and it was a great, just, breath of fresh air when I read it this summer. So I would highly recommend this as another quick read, especially if you need a little inspiration. Next, coming in at number 8 is Lumena by Amy Kaufman, and I believe Jay Kristoff, maybe? We'll see when I put it up over in the corner somewhere. But yeah, I was surprised. I don't know if I was surprised. I kept seeing this book on people's YouTube videos, and I thought, I need to have this book. I really want to see what it's about. I want to experience this book like everybody else is, and it just is so pretty. So I wanted a copy. Without knowing too much about it, I picked up a copy and I jumped into it. Now, it is a huge book, but it's all told through different ways of communication. There's hacked email accounts, and you see the transcript of the communication. There are transcripts from video feeds. There's a transcript from what the artificial intelligence in the spaceship is thinking. There's all kinds of ways that they show communication, and they tell the story without just giving you plain text, and I think that's outstanding. I've seen this type of thing done before, but never to this extent. Usually they pick one platform and that's the whole book. I know Meg Cabot has done a few where it is just emails, and that's what I liked specifically about Illuminate. You go across all the different formats of written communication without a direct story being told to you, and I loved it. The format was awesome. The cover was awesome. The idea was awesome. The only way I think that they could have done the presentation any better is if you actually got like a legit like dossier file folder with all of these things in. I think that would be so cool. But I digress. The story plot for this, I really didn't know what it was actually about besides the context of which they presented the information. Now, the storyline is basically they are on this planet, and they being the main characters, this girl and a boy, and they just broke up, and they bomb their planet. They hightail it away on some spaceships, and they're all running from this other spaceship that's gonna try to kill them all, basically. And they have to try to save the day. And there is a, like, mutant virus. There is an artificial intelligence that is controlling things without people's knowledge. There's all kinds of stuff happening. A lot of hacking. So there's a lot going on. However, the only downfall, I think, for me in this book was just the outer space element. I don't know what happens, but my brain just turns off when you go out in outer space. For some reason, my brain just doesn't wrap around that. So the fact that there was a lot of, like, spaceship and some space travel, it kind of threw me, but the story itself was really good. I love the development of all the characters, and in the end, I really cared about all of them. Even the artificial intelligence I found very, I don't know, intriguing. I wanted to read more. So I'm excited that there's going to be a number 2, and I will definitely keep reading, even though it is a space book. So if you really like books about outer space, this one's definitely for you. Next, at number 7, is The Husband's Secret by Leanne Moriarty. This is the story of 3 couples, 6 total people, and how all their lives weave together with one secret. And I think this book was amazing. I'd heard good things about it, and I got it as an audiobook, and I started out, and I thought, there are way too many people. There is way too much plot happening here with all the different people. I don't think this is going to connect well. And I really was kind of down on it at the beginning, but the more I listened, the more amazing it got. The storylines totally intertwine. It is, I kind of guessed it, but not 100%, and even if you do see what the secret is coming, it's still amazing to watch everything unfold and to see what happens with all of the characters, and there's still very much a thriller, suspense, mystery element to it until the very end. I loved listening to this. I was so excited to get up every day and drive to work just so I could listen to this audiobook in my car. And that's saying a lot. But I thought this was amazing. I am so excited to read more of Leanne Moriarty's work later, hopefully in 2016. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, number 7. My number 6 pick is Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I originally read a Harry Potter book, I don't know, a couple of years ago. I did not read them when they were popular. I don't know, for some reason I just really did not want to read Harry Potter when Harry Potter was coming out and it was a huge thing and everybody was reading Harry Potter. I just decided no. I really wasn't into fantasy too much when I was younger, and I just didn't want to. I say I wasn't into fantasy, but I read a lot of, like, vampire werewolves. That's the kind of fantasy I was in, not the magic stuff. The magic hocus pocus, I wasn't really into that. But I decided years later, after the 7th book had been published and the hype kind of died down and people were still talking about it, to give it a try. And I read Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, and I didn't like it. I didn't get the hype. I didn't get it. So I just put it aside. I had a few used copies laying on my shelf of the other ones. I sold them back and moved on with my life. Well, once I joined BookTube, people were talking about it, and I thought, you know, I'm going to give this another try. I've grown a few years. I have kind of a different perspective on books. I picked it back up. I read it again, but this time I picked up the audiobook as well, and that made a huge difference. I cannot remember the name of the guy who does the audiobooks, but for first, he's amazing, and for seconds, I cannot believe he can do all those voices, and it really brings the story to life, I think. So, yes, I picked up the audiobook, I read Sorcerer's Stone again, and I loved it. I liked it, and I loved it, and I wanted to read more, so I immediately picked up the second book. Well, I shouldn't say immediately. It was a couple months later, but still, very quickly, I picked up the second one, and that is Chamber of Secrets. I read it. I loved it. I think my favorite part, the part that sticks in my head the most, is when they were denoming the garden. I love that. Now, I refuse to see movies before I read the book. at least whenever I can help it. So I have not seen any of the Harry Potter movies besides the first one, because I did watch that after I read the first one. So I'm very excited to see the second one now that it's finished, and I'm hoping to read the third one soon as an audiobook. I have a couple other audiobooks planned, but as soon as I get some free time in the audiobook section, I am definitely going to pick up the third one. Now, I know most of you have already read it, and you probably agree that it is awesome, but it is definitely my number 6 pick for this year. My number 5 pick is one I actually just finished, and it was an ARC I got from a library conference I went to in November, and I picked it up. I was not totally sold on it. I'm not a huge historical fiction person, especially around World War II with the Holocaust, because obviously it's depressing, and I don't really like depressing books. But I was handed a copy of Anna and the Swallow Man by Gabriel Savit. I hope I'm saying your name right. And I was told it was really good. It kind of is blurbed like The Book Thief, so I'm like, I'll give it a try. It comes out in January, and it was amazing. I read it all in one day for the holiday booktubeathon, and I loved it. Now, I would say that I wasn't 100% crazy about the ending, but there's a reason for it, and you may like it. I think it's going to be like half and half. So a certain type of person is going to love it, and a certain type of person is going to hate it. And I was the one who, I didn't hate the ending at all, but it was just like, oh. So I don't know. You read it and you tell me what you think about the ending, but I thought this was amazing. Basically, it is kind of like The Book Thief. If you really like The Book Thief, if you like books in that kind of vein, then I would definitely suggest Anna and the Swallow Man. It is centered around a little girl in Poland during the Second World War, and the Nazis are beginning to invade Poland, and her father's taken away, and she's kind of an orphan, even though it's not really official. And she stumbles upon the Swallow Man, and he basically leads her away and takes care of her and teaches her his road rules, and they work their way through the war. I'm totally doing an awful job describing this. Ignore everything I just said. Just read it and see what you think. I think my favorite part about this book was the role that language played. Language was a huge reoccurring theme in this book. The characters spoke multiple languages, like specific ones, and the way they could shift and the way it was assigned to different people, and even just the way that the language was presented to you as a reader, it was outstanding. There were so many awesome metaphors, and it was just great. Now, the only problem that I would say I have with it, besides the ending, which, again, you'll see, is that it's geared towards teens, and I felt like the language was at a level that I don't think I know a teenager that would probably read this book. However, I think a lot more young adults maybe would read it, like older young adults. Old young adults, you know what I'm saying. But the language is a little bit tougher than I think kids want to read, especially in a historical fiction context. I think some kids are going to be bogged down with that language, so I'm not 100% sure it's marketed toward the right audience, but it is amazing. I literally, while I was reading it, would just put the book down every once in a while and go, wow. I mean, it was just so good, and I am so excited for it to come out next month and hear more people do a little blurb of this and see what people think. Yeah, but I believe it comes out on the 26th, and I'm hoping to do a full review on that right before it comes out, so stay tuned for that one. My number 4 pick is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. This is one that I heard mentioned a lot here on BookTube, so I picked it up. And I really wasn't too much into fantasy. I like to read books about vampires and werewolves because, you know, everybody did after Twilight, and even a little bit before Twilight, and especially after Twilight. Everybody's vampires, werewolves, and one of my favorite series is about werewolves, so yeah. Besides that, I really just didn't get into the fantasy worlds and everything too much, but I heard about this. I thought I want to try this. I want to get into this and see what it's about, and I picked up A Darker Shade of Magic, and I loved it. I think V.E. Schwab's writing is really what did it. I don't know. I don't even know how you could come up with this story, and it was amazing. But anyway, basically it's about a magician who can travel between worlds, and he's got this sweet-ass coat that can change sides. It's got like multi-dimensional pockets pockets and all kinds of madness going on. And he meets a girl that is pretty badass herself, and they work together to basically correct the fact that he brought something from one of the worlds that he shouldn't. And the worlds, by the way, are all parallel Londons, and London is probably my favorite city, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. It's awesome, and I am so excited that the sequel is coming out this year in 2016, and I am so pumped to get it. I am planning on rereading A Darker Shade of Magic before A Gathering of Shadows comes out, and I hope to read more V.E. Schwab this year because I think she is an amazing writer. Yeah. So I'm gonna move on now to number 3, which is Lumena by Noelle Stevenson. Wow. One of my goals this year, especially after joining BookTube, was to read more graphic novels and comics because that wasn't in my wheelhouse. I felt like I liked a certain type of book, and that's really all I read before BookTube, and I've really tried to kind of broaden that out a little bit more as I have watched other people's videos. So I'm like, I'm really going to read a lot of graphic novels and comic books this year, and I did meet that goal, but by far my favorite one was Lumena. It is hilarious. I think first of all, the art style is pretty cool, and that is Noelle Stevenson. You can always spot her artwork. There's something, I can't really put my finger on it, but there's something very stylistic and unique about her artwork, and I can always pick it out. But the story itself is amazing. It follows the story of this girl who wants to be basically the apprentice to the villain in the story. And it's just this, typical trope of characters that you always see. You have the good guy hero, and you have the bad guy villain, and they're always feuding. And then, like I said, you've got this girl in the middle who's decided she wants to align herself with the villain, and it is not at all the typical trope, and I loved Lumena and the villain together. I thought it was amazing. I don't want to say too much without giving it away, but I loved it. I had borrowed it from the library at first because I just have no interest in really gathering too many graphic novels, especially at that point. But it was so awesome that I completely went and ordered my own copy immediately, and I can't wait to read it again. I'm excited. I'm excited to get it in my library at school as well, to let the kids read it and talk with them about it, because I think they will like it also. And if you have not picked up Lumena, I would highly suggest it as a graphic novel, especially if you're looking to get into graphic novels. I would highly recommend Lumena. And I know Noelle Stevenson has done a lot of other ones, but so far this has absolutely 100% been my favorite graphic novel. Next, for number 2, is probably one of the first books I actually read in 2016, and it was picked for a book club that I was in last year, and it's Unbroken by Lauren Hillenbrand. And this is the story of basically survival during World War II. And again, I'm not a huge World War II fiction, nonfiction person. I don't really like to read about wars. I think they're depressing. But again, the book club picked it, so I thought, I'm just gonna read it. And it was so good. I don't know what to say. I really did not think I was gonna like it. I almost knew I wasn't gonna like it. I almost read it as I'm gonna read it and show you that I know what I'm talking about and that I don't like it. But it was so good. And it follows the story of Louis, who goes to war. He becomes a pilot, and during the war, his plane goes down, and he and 2 other people on the plane survive, and they end up floating through the Pacific for months and months. They're pronounced dead, basically, and oh my gosh. So first of all, that was traumatic. Them surviving in the ocean. Oh my goodness, I can't imagine. I mean, there's sharks, they were starving, there was the exposure. Oy. Then they get picked up by the Japanese. Obviously, the Japanese were against us, and they became prisoners of war, and they were treated so horribly. And he kind of gets moved around to these different prisons, and oh my gosh, it's awesome. It was made into a movie. If you haven't read it, I would highly suggest you read it. I don't read World War II novels, especially ones about specific people, but this was phenomenal. It follows the whole story of his life. You see the ups and you see the downs. You see the effects that were left on him after the war. You see him come to terms with himself, and you get to see a little bit of the struggle that maybe veterans, especially now, are suffering coming home. I just think it was outstanding. It was so well done. I'm kind of hesitant to see the movie, though, because I don't really want, like, my idea of the book to be tainted, so I don't know. We'll see about the movie. But that takes us to number 1. And my number 1 book, and this is so embarrassing because I totally met this author this year and I totally nerded out on her. But that's okay. I got a signed copy of this. My number 1 pick is The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. I love Maggie Stiefvater. I'm just gonna say it. It's out there. It's true. I might have said that to her face. I don't remember because I was so excited I just started talking. But I got to meet her at the library conference that I went to in November, and I got her to sign Shiver, which is one of my favorite series, and I got her to sign the first copy of The Raven Boys, and I was so excited. But anyway, The Raven Boys, if you don't know, follows 4 boys from a private school and a girl named Blue who is from a psychic family. The 5 technically of them all work together to find a possibly dead, possibly sleeping Welsh king on these ley lines that are magic little roads through all of the country, and they have help from all kinds of different people, and there's all kinds of drama and magic, and it's so awesome. When I first read the description of this book, I thought, no. Because I'd read Shiver, the Wolves of Mercy Falls series, and I loved it so much, and I'm like, I am not going to have this ruined by this weird little book about Raven Boys, and no, it's not going to happen. But everybody who read it loved it, so I thought, I really do love the Shiver series. I'm going to give it a try, and it is phenomenal. I literally read all of the 3 books in the Raven Boys cycle, or the Raven cycle, that were out within probably 2 months, and I am dying for the Raven King. So, yeah. And I now have signed copies of the first 2 of her most popular series, and I'm so excited, but it's definitely my number 1. I am so excited for that to come out. Alright, this has been super long. Those are my top 10. Let me know which ones you've read and loved. Let me know what your top books were for 2015, and thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon. Bye!